What if I told you that one of the most valuable hospitality companies in the world owns 0 hotels? That it built an empire, valued at over $90 billion, on an idea that most people would have called absurd just 15 years ago. The idea was simple: pay to sleep in a complete stranger's home. Think about that. We spend our entire childhoods being warned by our parents about the dangers of trusting strangers. Yet, this company convinced millions of us to ignore that advice, to not only trust strangers with our safety, but for hosts, to trust them with our most valuable possession, our homes. This isn't just a business success story. It's a story about the systematic, deliberate engineering of trust on a global scale. The year is 2007. Two roommates in San Francisco, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia, are struggling to pay their rent. They notice that a major industrial design conference is coming to town, and every hotel room is booked solid. They see an opportunity. They pull 3 air mattresses out of a closet, inflate them on their living room floor, and create a simple website, airbedandbreakfast.com. They charged $80 a night, and to their surprise, 3 people showed up. From this humble, almost comical beginning, Airbnb was born. But for the first year, the company was a spectacular failure. The idea wasn't catching on. The problem wasn't a lack of spare rooms, it was a lack of trust. So how did Airbnb solve the stranger danger problem? How did they manufacture a system of trust powerful enough to convince millions of people to open their doors, disrupting the entire hotel industry in the process? That's the question we're answering today. In their early days, Chesky and Gebbia were met with blank stares. Investors didn't get it. Users were skeptical. The core friction wasn't technological, it was psychological. The hotel industry had spent a century building a brand around predictability and safety. When you book a room at a Marriott or a Hilton, you know exactly what you're getting. A clean room, a key card, a front desk, and a certain standard of service. It's a standardized, impersonal, and trusted transaction. Airbnb was proposing the exact opposite. Every single listing was unique. Every host was an unknown individual. Every experience was unpredictable. To succeed, they had to overcome a massive trust deficit. They had to make the strange feel safe, and the unknown feel familiar. Their first major breakthrough didn't come from a complex algorithm, but from a very simple observation. The photos of the listings were terrible. They were dark, blurry, and uninviting. This wasn't just an aesthetic problem, it was a trust problem. Low-quality photos signaled a low-quality experience. Acting on advice from Y Combinator's Paul Graham, the founders flew to New York, rented a professional camera, and went door-to-door, taking beautiful, high-quality photos of their hosts' apartments. The result? Bookings in New York immediately doubled, then tripled. This was the first crucial lesson. Trust on the internet begins with presentation. Professional photos created a sense of legitimacy. It showed that both Airbnb and the host cared enough to present the space in the best possible light. It was the first, vital step in bridging the gap between the digital world and the physical one. High-quality photos were a start, but they weren't enough. The platform needed a scalable system to manage behavior and build confidence. The solution was their next brilliant innovation, the two-way review system. Before Airbnb, review systems were almost always a one-way street. A customer buys a product and leaves a review. But in a peer-to-peer marketplace, both the customer and the provider are individuals. A bad guest could be just as damaging as a bad host. Airbnb's system required both the guest and the host to review each other within 14 days of the stay. Crucially, the reviews were double-blind, meaning neither party could see the other's review until both had been submitted, or until the 14-day window closed. This prevented retaliatory or biased feedback. The impact was profound. First, it created mutual accountability. Hosts were incentivized to provide a great experience to earn a good review. But guests were also incentivized to be respectful, clean, and courteous, because their reputation as a guest would follow them to their next booking. A host could, and would, decline a reservation from a guest with a history of bad reviews. Second, it built a community of self-policing. The system organically filtered out bad actors on both sides. Hosts with consistently poor reviews would see their bookings dry up. Guests with poor reviews would find it difficult to book a stay. This wasn't just a feature, it was a reputation engine. It turned a series of anonymous transactions into a web of relationships built on verified, public feedback. It gave users a reason to trust not just Airbnb, but each other. Even with great photos and a robust review system, one major fear remained for hosts: what if someone damages my home? In 2011, this fear became a reality. A host's San Francisco apartment was ransacked and vandalized by a guest, leading to a public relations nightmare. The company's initial, fumbling response nearly sank the brand. Recognizing the existential threat, Brian Chesky made a swift and decisive move. He published a public apology and announced the introduction of the Airbnb Host Guarantee. Initially, it was a $50,000 guarantee against property damage. Today, that program, now called AirCover for hosts, provides up to $3 million in damage protection. This was a masterstroke of strategy. The host guarantee acted as a massive institutional safety net. It fundamentally changed the risk calculation for a potential host. The worst-case scenario was no longer a personal financial disaster. The platform was now absorbing the biggest risk. This move signaled to the entire user base that Airbnb was not just a passive intermediary. It was an active partner, willing to put its own money on the line to protect its community. It was the final, critical piece of the trust puzzle. It told hosts, "We have your back." And in doing so, it unlocked a torrent of new listings from people who had previously been too risk-averse to participate. With these pillars of trust in place, professional presentation, a two-way reputation engine, and an institutional safety net, the flywheel began to spin at an incredible speed. And that's the secret. This is the core insight into Airbnb's entire strategy. Airbnb isn't a real estate company. It's a trust company. The hotel industry competes by building physical assets. They spend billions on land, construction, and maintenance. Their model is capital-intensive and slow to scale. Airbnb sidestepped all of that. They realized their most valuable asset wasn't a single room, but the trust that facilitated the booking of millions of rooms. Their product wasn't the physical space, it was the digital infrastructure that made the transaction between two strangers feel safe, or even desirable. They didn't disrupt the hotel industry by building better hotels. They disrupted it by building a more efficient, scalable trust engine. While hotels were selling standardized rooms, Airbnb was monetizing the spare bedrooms, treehouses, and castles that already existed, unlocking a massive, hidden supply of inventory that the world didn't even know it had. They didn't build an empire of property. They built an empire on a carefully engineered system of human trust. And if you're getting that aha moment, take a second to support the channel by hitting the like button and subscribing. It helps us keep unlocking these strategies for you. The brilliance of Airbnb's strategy is that it shows that the biggest hurdles to a new business model are often not economic or technological, but psychological. By focusing relentlessly on solving the trust problem, they not only created a company but pioneered an entire economic category, the sharing economy. This connects to the broader business principle of platform thinking. The most disruptive companies of the last 2 decades, like Uber, Etsy, and DoorDash, don't own the primary assets. Uber doesn't own cars. Etsy doesn't own craft supplies. And Airbnb doesn't own homes. Instead, they own the platform. They create the marketplace and, most importantly, they provide the trust infrastructure that allows millions of independent producers and consumers to connect and transact. They unlock value by reducing friction and building trust at scale. Airbnb taught the business world a powerful lesson. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can build isn't a product at all, but the trust that allows a community to form around it. If you learned something new, hit the like button and subscribe for more strategy breakdowns. And let us know in the comments, what company's strategy should we unlock next?